Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramu, Hare Ramu, Ramu Ramu, Hare Hare. Jayo Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda, Shri Radhe. Jayo Gauranitai, 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 Jayo Gauranitai, Jayo Jayo Prabhupada, 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 Jayo Jayo Gurudev, 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 Gurudev. हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतिरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास आदि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna, Prabhuji's Mataji's welcome you all to today's discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam as part of the Bhakti Vaibhav session. So today, just for everybody's info, I have an official appointment, although it is Sunday, around 3 p.m. my time, so which is 12:30 India time. So let's see, we don't want to rush too much to finish all the verses, but if possible, we will try to conclude the chapter. If we are not able to conclude the chapter, then we will cover the remaining verses next Sunday. So let us see how it goes. Venkata Narasimha Prabhuji, you have raised your hand.
Prabhuji, the link for attendance is not working.
Yeah, so typically I want the link for attendance to be shared at the end of the session. So wait,
Okay,
and worst case we can't share, then I will share it after the session on WhatsApp group. Hare Krishna. Okay, so to start with, we see the last time around, we saw Parikshit Maharaj persisting with the representative of Dharma in the form of the bull and the representative of Mother Earth in the form of Mother Cow, asking them for who is the exactly the cause of their distress and their suffering, where the three legs of the bull they were already cut off, and the bull was standing on one leg, trembling. And Maharaj Parikshit, although he had Kali visible in front of him, who was the perpetrator of the act, Maharaj Parikshit wanted that confirmation from the Dharma, representative of Dharma, and the representative of Mother Earth in the form of formal complaint that Kali is the cause of their sufferings. But surprisingly, we see the bull who, because he was the personification of religion, representative of the religion, he refused to confirm Kali Purusha as the exact cause of his distress. In fact, the bull he gave the philosophical understanding in terms of how different philosophers considered different reasons as the cause of their happiness or distress. For example, some philosophers they declare themselves to be the cause of their happiness or distress, while some others they declare the superhuman powers which are beyond the human capacity. These powers as the cause of happiness and distress, while the next set of philosophers they consider the karma, the activity, as the cause of one's happiness and distress, or some other materialist uh, they maintain that the material nature, the prakriti, is the cause of one's happiness and distress. And finally, the bull, the representative of religion, gives his final conclusion in terms of asking Maharaj Parikshit to use his own spiritual intelligence to ascertain the cause of distress of the bull and the cow, meaning that this Kali Purusha cannot be held as a exact cause for their distress, but indirectly the bull mentions that the supreme personality of Godhead without his sanction. Now we understand the wording Srimad Bhagavatam is using. Srimad Bhagavatam is not saying that the supreme personality of Godhead is the cause of distress, but the distresses are being meted out with the explicit sanction by the Lord for a very specific purpose. So we'll start from this particular point as part of today's discussion. Anyone has any questions, comments from the last session, Prabhuji's, Mataji's? Hare Krishna. Before we start with the today's verses, Hare Krishna. And can I request devotees, if you are in a comfortable setup, please try to switch on your videos. It even for me it is very easier to communicate. And if you need 1 or 2 minutes to be in a proper setup, you can take that time. But it makes the interaction much more productive for either sides for us to discuss this subject matter. Okay. So let us see. So where does Bhagavatam mention? Not in the verse, but you read Srila Prabhupada's purport. Srila Prabhupada mentions the Vaishnavites, the devotees of the Lord, do believe, as above explained, that nothing can take place without the sanction of the Lord. That means the bull is saying that why to blame Kali when whatever happens in our life, either the benefits that we derive or the distresses that we get in our life, all of them are coming by the explicit sanction of the Lord. He is the supreme director. Yes. And by this particular philosophical explanation given by the bull, Maharaj Parikshit was astonished to see this response from the bull, and he understood that this bull, although he appears to be a bull, an animal, but he is definitely a advanced living being. He's a realized personality. He is not a ordinary animal as he appears to be externally. So that realization Parikshit Maharaj gets. And we have seen quite a few examples as part of our discussions that, as it is mentioned in English, a book should not be judged by its cover. So there are so many incidences of many great personalities whose wisdom came to be known to the overall world only when they started speaking. Otherwise, materially speaking, their external appearance was very much disguising their wisdom. Like we see the example in the seventh canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, when Prahlad Maharaj was enthroned as the sovereign king of the entire world, uh, placed in that position by Lord Narsimhadev and enthroned, Abhishek performed by Lord Brahma himself. And when Prahlad Maharaj set out to roam around in his kingdom to see how things are going, it is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, he happened to come across a very exalted personality who externally was disguised as a madman, as a avadhuta, and manifesting the Ajgara Vritti. Ajgara Vritti means, externally speaking, completely inactive, but internally he was a self-realized soul. And the Bhagavatam mentions about various important inquiries that Prahlad Maharaj, who himself is a Mahabhagavad devotee, who himself is a Mahajana, making to this another Mahabhagavata, Avadhuta, and receiving answers from him. Similarly, we also see the famous story of Maharaj Rahugan mistaking Jada Bharata, whose name as such suggests that he was Jada. That means externally he seemed like a dumb fellow, but and chastising, scolding him severely because of not performing a simple task, a simple duty that was assigned, which was of carrying the palanquin of Maharaj Rahugan. And Maharaj Rahugan chastised him back and forth and even threatened him with severe punishment for not being able to perform this duty, only up to the point that Jada Bharat did not open his mouth. The moment Jada Bharat opened his mouth and started speaking philosophically, Maharaj Rahugan was completely flabbergasted and repented his own actions to the level that he prostrated himself in front of Jada Bharat and mentioning that he is not even afraid of the Trishul of Lord Shiva or the Danda of Yamaraj, but he is very, very afraid of offending such exalted personalities like Jada Bharat and begging forgiveness for his misconduct. We similarly see the story of uh, Maharaj uh, Rishabh Dev, who, as a Avadhuta, externally looked appearing as a madman, where children were throwing stones and all at him. People were considering him as a madman, but he gave such brilliant philosophical instructions to his 100 sons, specifically led by Maharaj Bharat. And similarly, we see the story of Shukadev Goswami, who again appeared as a Avadhuta, externally as a completely uh, ignorant of the externals in this material world. But when he opened his mouth, all Srimad Bhagavatam and glorification of the Supreme Lord and all the philosophical truths from Srimad Bhagavatam came out from his mouth. So we see so many examples of great personalities in Srimad Bhagavatam who, if externally seen, they appear to be a ordinary personalities. In this case, not even a human being or an animal in the form of bull. But same bull, he spoke such philosophical conclusions that Maharaj Parikshit he understood. So let's start with text 21. Some of the verses I would just read the translation, and for other verses I will request devotees to recite the verse. Suta Goswami said, O best among the Brahmanas, the Emperor Parikshit, thus hearing the personality of religion speak, was fully satisfied and without mistake or regret, he gave his reply. So this verse we had seen last time. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, unless one is perfectly conversant with the law of the Supreme Lord, one cannot speak such things touching the philosophical truths. The emperor being also on an equal level of sagacity. This word sagacity we discussed last time. It means one who has a very solid power of discretion. What is what? To understand that with his discretion. The emperor, being also on an equal level of sagacity, replied to the point without doubts or mistakes. That means Parikshit Maharaj, he did not rush through in presuming Kali to be the culprit and directly go and chastise and kill Kali, but he approached Dharma and the uh, Mother Earth in a very, very humanly manner, understanding the distresses, cause of distresses, before finalizing on the punishment that was to be meted out to Kali. So he didn't rush through. And Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport of the earlier verse, text 20th, that the whole purpose of this particular episode of Kali persecuting the bull and the cow was to prove Maharaj Parikshit as an ideal executive head who knew perfectly well how to give protection to these two very important species, the bull and the mother earth, which are required for the prosperity of the kingdom. So let's start with text 22. Anyone would like to recite through Prabhuji's, Mataji's? Hare Krishna, keep your hands raised. Gita Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat
Hare,
Pranam.
Hare Krishna Dandas.
Rajovacha
Rajo Uvacha
Rajo uvacha
Dharmam Bravisi Dharmajna
Dharmam
dharmam
Bravishi
pravishi
Dharmajna
dharmajna
Dharmosi Vrasharupatra
dharmosi
Dharmosi
vrishabhadra
Vrishabhadra
Yad Adharma Kratasthanam
Yadadharma
yadadharma
Kritasthanam
Suchak Suchak Kashyapi Tad Bhavet
Shuchak
suchakashyapi
Kashyapi
tadbhavet.
Tadbhavet. Translation.
The king said, "O you are in the form of a bull. You know the truth of religion, and you are speaking according to the principle that the destination intended for the perpetrator of irreligious acts is also intended for one who identifies the perpetrator. You are no other than the personality of religion."
Yes.
Shall I
So,
proceed?
yeah, we'll take a pause here, Mataji. So understand this particular line which I have highlighted in the translation. It is a bit tricky to understand if we don't pay a close attention. Here it is mentioned that the bull says, okay, Parikshit Maharaj is simply acknowledging and repeating what the religion personified has said. You are speaking according to the principle. And what is the principle? That the destination intended for the perpetrator of the irreligious acts, that means the destination that is destined for a culprit, for the Kali Purusha in this case, that destination is also intended for one who identifies the perpetrator. That means if somebody says that this particular person ABC is the cause of my distress, he is the one because of whom I am suffering, he or she is the one who has caused me distress, this suffering, then we are also going to inherit the same destination that the perpetrator is going to inherit because of his wrongful act. That means if a person is committing some wrong act and if the other person is putting the blame on that perpetrator, that because he has done such and such act, that's why I am suffering, then that sufferer is also destined for some kind of contamination or the resultant reaction. He won't go without reaction. That's what the representative of dharma, the bull, has mentioned. And why it is so, we will see as part of the purport, and we also have a slide on this. You are no other than the personality of religion. Because of this high stature of philosophical understanding that came out from the philosophical truths spoken by Bull, the representative of religion, Maharaj Parikshit now understands that Bull's position, that he is the personality of religion. So we will divide this purport into parts. You can read one by one part, Mata. Just 1 second. Let me see. All right. Yes, you can start.
A devotee's conclusion is that no one is directly responsible for being a benefactor or mischief monger without the
Mischief monger.
without the sanction of the Lord. Therefore, he does not consider anyone to be directly responsible for such action. But in both the cases, he takes it for granted that either benefit or loss is God sent, and thus it is his grace. In case of benefit, no one will deny that it is God sent, but in case of loss or reverses, no one becomes doubtful about how the Lord could be so unkind to his devotee as to put him in great difficulty. Jesus Christ was seemingly put into such great difficulty, being crucified by the ignorant, but he was never angry at the mischief mongers. That is the way of accepting a thing, either favorable or unfavorable. Thus, for a devotee, the identifier is equally a sinner, like the mischief monger. By God's grace, the devotee tolerates all reverses. Maharaja Parikshit observed this, and therefore he could understand that the bull was no other than the personality of religion himself. In other words, a devotee has no suffering at all because so-called suffering is also God's grace for a devotee who sees God in everything. The cow and bull never placed any complaint before the king for being tortured by the personality of Kali, although everyone lodges such complaints before the state authorities. The extraordinary behavior of the bull made the king conclude that the bull was certainly the personality of religion, for no one else could understand the finer intricacies of the codes of religion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. So here it is mentioned, this is the word taken from text 19, Klesha Bijani. That means the root cause of the suffering. The bull refused to identify Kali Purusha as the root cause of suffering. And Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport that a devotee, he completely understands that all the benefits, all the happiness as well as the distress that comes in our life, it is coming by the sanction of Lord Krishna. And why does Lord Krishna arranges all these benefits or distresses to come in our life? Is he upset or does he derive any pleasure by putting us through distress? Not at all. Bhagavatam mentions that specifically all these situations are arranged as a great mercy, as Lord's grace upon us. And what happens, like we have also seen this earlier in the verse, Tatenu kampam susamikshamaano bhunjanu evatma kritam vipakam. Rudvak vapurbhir vidadhan namaste jivet yo mukti padesa dayabha. That a devotee, he patiently tolerates all the reverses, all the inconveniences, all the difficulties that come in his life as the mercy of the Lord, while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeed. That means he is patient. That means he is, what is the similar word of being patient? Anyone? He's not restless or he's not too reactive or impulsive.
Resilient, Prabhuji, resilient.
Resilient. Resilient is still, resilient slightly means different. It means that a person is not changed in the face of difficulty. Okay. Tolerant, yes. Being patient and tolerant in all these sufferings, because he understands that these are coming as the resultant reactions for my own past misdeeds. And Krishna has been very kind that he has arranged these reactions for me. Why? So that our hearts are purified. It is mentioned that the happiness it depletes the punya karma. That means the happiness or the enjoyment that we get in our life. It consumes the positive reactions we have from our past activities, and the difficulties or the distresses, they consume the papa karma. They consume the negative reactions we are supposed to get because of our past misdeeds. So, in a way, an intelligent person should become happy that although the current situation is not very palatable to me, it is not very uh, is not very much to my liking, but facing these difficulties, if I simply remain patient, then I would cleanse my past misdeeds, and thus being freed from it, ultimately my path to approach Krishna will be all clear. And it is mentioned that if we understand the difficulties that are coming in our life as the grace of the Lord, then by Krishna's grace, we would also be empowered with the patience that is required, with the tolerance that is required to face that situation. Otherwise, if we approach it with a grievance or with a revengeful attitude, why am I facing this injustice or facing this difficulty in my life? I would fight back. I would try to give it back either to the specific persons that I feel are the reasons for these difficulties, or would try to get back at the material nature by trying to lord it over the material nature. Then that Krishna's empowerment won't come in the form of ability to tolerate, ability to get through patiently through this difficult situation. And also, if we don't understand it in this way, that this particular difficult situation is ultimately coming by the sanction of the Lord, by the will of the Lord, then what happens? We go into BMW mode. So this BMW, I had heard from a devotee and I liked it very much. It means blaming, mourning, and worrying. That means we would knowingly or unknowingly put the blame on somebody else for our own difficult time, for our own hurt, for our own suffering. We would start blaming anyone and everyone apart from ourselves. And we are constantly having negative thoughts. We are constantly in a mourning mode and worrying mode. So, and secondly, Bhagavatam mentions that whatever is the contamination destination that is intended for the perpetrator. Perpetrator means whoever is the culprit doing the wrong act. Similar destination. Now, don't get bogged down that how come Bhagavatam say similar destination, but it is right, although it may seem very far fetched. That that same destination would also be liable for a person who starts putting blame on others. So even if that person is suffering, when he starts putting blame on others, then that person is also liable to get that reaction or contamination. And Srila Prabhupada gives in the purport example of one such great personality, Lord Jesus Christ. There is a very famous statement by Lord Jesus Christ where he, being crucified, he is praying to the Lord that, my dear Father, please forgive these people for they don't know what they are doing. And similar other example, which we also see in the scriptures in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, is Srila Haridas Thakur, who, despite being flogged in 22 marketplaces and beaten severely by the soldiers of this Nawab, the king of Bengal, he was completely, not only he was tolerant, but he was intensely praying to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to please forgive these people, and if he has committed any pious activities, then please don't mind the offenses or the wrong deeds that the soldiers were committing. And this was itself acknowledged by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Mahaprakash Leela, where when he was calling different devotees one by one, when he called Srila Haridas Thakur, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took off the upper garment on his body and showed to Srila Haridas Thakur and all the devotees present there the marks of the whips that the soldiers were beating Srila Haridas Thakur with. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mentioned that, my dear Haridas, because you were continuously praying for the for the forgiveness and protection of those soldiers, because I did not want you to bear that hurt, bear that brunt of the whipping. I took all those beatings on my own back, and look at the marks on my back. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed it to Srila Haridas Thakur, and he started crying, seeing those marks on the beautiful golden body of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the point is, all these great personalities, Lord Jesus Christ, Srila Haridas Thakur, Nityananda Prabhu in the Jagai Madhai Leela, Nityananda Prabhu personally protected Madhai and Jagai from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's wrath, and praying to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that if he has any pious act to his credit, then please forgive these personalities. And in fact, glorifying Jagai, that when Madhai was about to hit me second time, this brother Jagai saved my life. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thus somehow agreed to grant his mercy to Jagai, and subsequently Madhai also begged forgiveness, and he was also given mercy. So the point is, these great personalities, they never ever put the blame on the perpetrator, even when the perpetrators were right present in front of them. In fact, going one way, even if we are not able to go that one way higher, which these exalted personalities are showing, where they are not only forgiving the perpetrators, they are asking for the well-being of those perpetrators. Like Nityananda Prabhu requested Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to grant his blessings, to grant his mercy to Jagai and Madai. So these personalities, they are in fact asking for the deliverance of those perpetrators, not just forgiveness. So at least we should come to the primary level, which means not to put blame on anyone else, but understand those difficulties as a small token punishment coming with the sanction of the Lord, just for our purification. Because if we don't take this purification, we would continue to carry that sinful reactions for our past misdeeds, and it would halt our progress on the devotional path. So the next question that comes, and this is a group exercise, that what practical application and result can we understand of applying this concept of the proper mood in accepting reversals in our lives. So, for the society in general, what is the practical application and result if all the people in general? So, forget about the ordinary people. First, as a practicing devotee, we ourselves should apply it for our own spiritual progression, and then try to teach the systematically the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam, so that people in general also understand this concept of how this material world works. So maybe you can take a minute or two to check through in Srimad Bhagavatam the specific verse that we saw, text 22, translation purport, and even earlier verses, and then come up with your answers. Let me see if we can. So only if everybody is willing to participate, we can have it as a classroom activity. If not, we will form the breakout rooms if we have less representation from devotees. Let us see how many hands come up. Hare Krishna. Oops. Everyone, the question is clear. What is the ask? Prabhuji's, Mataji's?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, so take a minute or so to think through, jot down your points, structure your thoughts, and then you can raise your hands. So what are the, it should be are not is, what are the practical applications and results of applying this particular concept of accepting reversals in our lives? Can we request more devotees to participate actively? Do it as a service to other devotees. If we don't speak, then it is like hearing a class. It is not attending Bhakti Vaibhav or Bhakti Shastri. So even if it is wrong, don't worry, nobody is going to judge. Okay, but do try to participate. It would make your own understanding, realization very solid, very pakka. Hare Krishna. Mamta Nagvekar Mataji, Mangalamai Shri Prada Mataji, Murli Kari Prabhu, Nityangi Mataji, Prema Prakash Haridas Prabhuji. It's not possible to take all the names. Vandita Mataji. And those of you who are initiated, please do use the beautiful names you have been given by Jayapataka Swami Maharaj or other Maharajas. What is the use if you don't yourself use those names? So Vandita Mataji, you can use the initiated name. You can put your legal name in bracket. So maybe we'll request devotees one by one. Sada Tushta Achyuta Prabhu, Hare Krishna, please unmute.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, Prabhuji. There are two ways of looking at this situation. First way, I'll just try to put up something which is beyond our control. For example, where we take birth, the families where we take birth, or the situation what we are going through. Somebody have their own difficulties. So these things, as I see here, we should never blame and accept it as our deeds, past karmas, and we have to consider as a mercy even the difficult situation. Like Kunti Devi says, whenever the difficult situation, she's always remembering Krishna. So these are the situation which will take us closer to the Lord, depending on His mercy. So this is one thing which I understand. Second thing which I don't understand, which can be open for discussion, is many times in our practical application, when we see in our personal life or professional life, we go through many situations where we see there are something which is going on wrong. So by this sloka, it is even limiting us to even raise a voice or bring it to the notice of the authorities that what is happening is not right. So how do we understand this is what I wish to understand. No, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Sadhadushta Prabhu, for sharing. So first point Prabhuji mentioned is that if we accept these reversals, then we are opening the path for our purification and going closer to Krishna, right? So it, in a way, what is good for us, living in this material world comfortably for many, many lifetimes, or being purified in one lifetime or two lifetimes and then being eligible for going back home, back to Godhead. Which one will an intelligent person choose? Any intelligent person would obviously choose the first one. That means purify oneself in this life, clear out all the reactions, both the positive and the negative, and then go back home, back to Godhead, to lead a life of Satchit Ananda, eternity, a knowledge and bliss, rather than being stuck in this material world for very long. And the second point is Srimad Bhagavatam advocating not raising the voice against the injustices and not taking those injustices, taking those wrong deeds to one's authorities? So the answer to the second point is definitely no, that Srimad Bhagavatam nowhere it is saying that one should not take action to mitigate those difficulties. But what Srimad Bhagavatam is saying is don't put the blame on any particular entity ABC. There are ways to deal with the difficulties by taking them to the proper authorities where they can take action to stop it. But in our own heart, we don't become inimical, we don't have a revengeful attitude towards the perpetrator. Okay, like say for example, if a person has done some wrong deed to me, say for example has committed a robbery or all, I trying to get back to that robber on an individual capacity is what is not recommended in Srimad Bhagavatam. Considering that, or if somebody is a thief, forget robber is still in front of me, but a thief who has without my knowledge stole something, then there is an option to approach the law enforcement agencies to try and retrieve that thing and also bring the perpetrator to justice so that that act is not repeated. But we don't ourselves start holding the person responsible and ourselves take things in our hand. So in this case, of course, these are all exalted personalities. So taking rightful action by making sure that injustice, that wrong deed is not further perpetrated to other persons is definitely required. But we don't get into blame game. We understand that this person is simply an instrument. I may have committed some wrong deed in my past life. Like maybe I'll give a simple example. When COVID was there and we were stuck here in Singapore, and we had a young family, a young husband and wife residing in the apartment which I had owned back home. And family was based out of here, so that place was rented. And somehow the person who was staying in that apartment, thankfully, he also happened to be a devotee. And unfortunately, he had lost his job. And the couple had just became parents to a young baby during COVID time. And he clearly mentioned his inability to continue in Pune because of the circumstances. And I mentioned to him that the time may be difficult, and either I'm too much reliant on that income to run my family. So you take off from paying and pay whenever it is possible in future when you get your job. And the family continued for almost 10, 11 months. And finally, he had obtained but some contract basis, a temporary basis employment, and they decided to went back to their home state, which was in northeast, and handed over the keys and everything, saying that whenever there is a feasibility he would get a job, he would immediately return and all. But after so many years passed, I recently mentioned to my wife that it is not worth pursuing that person for the money or whatever, because probably we may have owned him something in the past, and whatever was to be done, that just tell that person, if you face a favorable situation where you are able to return it, then do it. I have done my job, later is his say. And especially because he is a devotee, so of course we cannot say that this is the rightmost way. Somebody else may want to pursue, so that is fine, using the legal means. But the point is, if we understand it that we may have some liabilities to be repaid to him in past life, and he's simply becoming an instrument, and that Lakshmi, even if we receive, it is not that it is going to make us millionaire. So why to unnecessarily spoil our consciousness thinking over that? So just a simple example to say that a person who may act in some not so ideal manners is not necessarily the perpetrator. We ourselves could have done something wrong in the past. So maybe we'll request other devotees to share their thoughts. Radhika Ratnanga Mataji, Hare Krishna, please unmute.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandos Mataji.
Uh, uh, Prabhu, to what Sadatushta Prabhu has asked, I can give you, it's a timing, Prabhu. See, some karmas will be in the seed stage, some will be in the sapling stage, some will come to a fruit giving stage. So, if we are hardworking enough, see, we should leave the result to the Lord and continue to do our work. When the time comes, no, Prabhu, definitely the result will come in a more appropriate way and more appropriate time. At that point of time, maybe out of our maturity, or or the ability to understand what is right and what is wrong, we may long for the things at that particular point of time which may not be right for us. But eventually, when you practice and continue in this devotional service, we will come to know that at that particular time it was not right for you. So Krishna has some better plans for you. So that eventually, out of patience over a time, it will come to know, Prabhu.
Yes, just one particular point in this case. What
Example,
Sadatushta.
I can tell my own, Prabhu, in a professional sphere, because working attitude, my own colleagues, they never let me do major roles, so that they want to take the credit and all. They have always tried to given me a back seat. And that period of a time, I could read Bhagavad Gita, take classes. I have read Bhagavatam. I have completed Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now, when I've transferred back, the same roles and responsibility which were taken back in back seat few years ago, those have come with a more responsible way. Now I'm doing it, Prabhu. So I think if even if people try to say something good or bad about you, or they try to tell the administration the not the right point of view, the time will come, Prabhu, when your worth will be proven. We just have to be patient, I think, Prabhu. Sorry if I'm wrong.
Thank,
Hare Krishna.
thank you, Radhika Ratnanga Mataji. So this definitely helps. just one point is specifically if somebody is being, somebody being wronged is one thing, we can be patient. But if somebody is being exploited, then definitely those things should be brought to the notice of the authorities. Okay. So just to be differentiating between these two scenarios, if being wronged is one thing, that if we are not being personally harmed, maybe our progress is being checked or slowed down, it is still, we can be tolerant. But if somebody is being exploited in some way or other, then definitely don't just keep it to yourself, do take it to the authorities, but don't be in a revengeful attitude directly towards the perpetrator.
Yes, Prabhu, we can give a representation and we can leave, Prabhu. So
Yes.
things will take time, but it will happen, Prabhu. Good will take time. Constructive things will take time.
Thank you, Mata. So we'll
Yeah, thank
request
you,
few
Prabhu.
other devotees
Hare
to
Krishna.
share their
Hare Krishna.
one by one. Prema Priya Mataji, one by one. 1 second. Yes, Mataji, please go ahead.
As regards the money, you spoke about the money that was given and was, I mean, they went off and probably my personal experience I wanted to share. Many times when it happens that we have to give the money, I feel the giver is not me, it is Krishna. And unless he gave me, I would not have been able to help the other person. And the taker also is Krishna only. So when I'm giving it to Krishna, we say Krishna Arpana and give it, I don't expect it back. So I think
Sorry,
that am I
one second.
audible? Am I audible?
Just give me 1 second, Mataji. Something changed on the screen here. My apologies. 1 second. Yes, sorry. Yes, Prema Priya Mataji, please go ahead.
Probably when I'm in such a situation when I need to help someone, what I feel is the giver is not me, because I would not have been able to give unless Lord gave me. And when they don't return it, I feel even I have given it to Krishna only. So the giver and the taker, when both are Krishna himself, I don't have to feel wait for the money to come back or feel bad that that is not returned to me. That's how normally I take it, Prabhuji. I don't feel bad about it.
Thank you, Prema Priya Mataji. Hare Krishna. Rohini Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Over the years, there are a couple of instances where I've realized maybe this is the reason why I have got this difficulty, not particularly pointing fingers at the person who, made that difficulty come or whatever it is, but it is realization that maybe, this particular event which happened before is what is causing this. But many of them you cannot get clarity because probably it is your past deeds which you don't remember. So one particular example I remember between me and my sister, my elder sister, is when we were younger, I never had any dust allergies or anything, and I was expected to clean the house, mop, dust, even clean her shelves and stuff. And being pretty young, I used to think in my mind, like, is this something that she's trying not to do so that, I can cover up the work? That was going on in my head, though I used to do the work. And for her, I had a lot of dental issues, and she was like, oh, this girl is like, what's happening? And parents are giving her more attention. But after few years now, I have got, dust allergies, asthma, and things like that. And she has got a lot of dental issues now. So we both actually discussed and said that, it's probably what we thought in our minds, and we are, having the after effects of this. So I think, it is in general, like, if you realize it is okay, but if you don't also, you should just leave it there, and it just makes it lighter to go through that difficulty and also accept it as it is your doing, rather than, telling somebody else was the cause of it. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Rohini Mat. So what Mataji just mentioned is that whatever role or circumstances a person may be in at any given point in time, it can change in future, and we may be in some other person's shoes. So it is not fair to judge a person or a situation based on a particular context. So maybe we'll request one more devotee. Can anyone tell me how do I extend these devotees videos in such a way that we can see more devotees videos. Right now I can see only 4. How do we?
Prabhu,
Bhakti,
grid
any
view.
grid view? Okay,
Yes,
but
Prabhu.
then the slide will go
Gallery,
to
Prabhuji.
gallery.
Side by side multi-speaker, your gallery is fine. I keep it on gallery, I can see all. Maximum 25 in one
Okay.
screen.
Okay, Mataji. All right, so maybe we'll request 1 or 2 more devotees. Mamta Nagvekar Mataji, Hare Krishna. Please unmute.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, I was listening to this one lecture by His Grace Radhanath Swami Maharaj, and in this lecture, he was mentioning that he was sitting near a beach somewhere, and he was watching the waves, and he said the waves were constantly changing. Some were swirling, and some were foaming. Some were crashing against each other, and no wave lasted for more than a few seconds. It was the same water. Um, and he mentioned that um, the same water was turning into another wave and another wave. But he said, when I was observing it, I thought about it like when we go deeper, there is a constant current below the waves that is steady and peaceful. And similarly, in this world, the situation that comes on us in different phases of our life, everything is just like the waves of our lifetimes. Sometimes we are young and we are healthy, and then we grow old. Sometimes we lose our power, sometimes we lose our health, sometimes circumstances changes, and sometimes people love us, sometimes they hate us. It is all just superficial surface of wind of time. And he said if we go deeper, we understand that we are soul, we are not this body, and we are a part of God. And in difficult situations, it gives us time, it gives us an opportunity to connect with Krishna and getting and to get more closer to him. So this is how we should look at the difficult times and the reversals that we get in life.
Thank you, Matesh. So basically, each
Hare
and every
Krishna.
situation that we get in our life, we can use it as an opportunity to go closer to Krishna if we maintain proper consciousness. So 1 second. In the interest of time, I'm not able to request more devotees to open up. Maybe for the next group exercise, we'll request other devotees to speak up. So some of the points I have listed in the subsequent slide. First one, we won't be in the mood of revengeful attitude of getting back at someone for the wrong deed, what they have done. And we will consider that they are simply being an instrument for my own reactions of the misdeeds. And second, by seeing Krishna's hand in both situations, when we are getting benefits as well as when we are getting distresses in our life, Bhagavatam mentions that we will receive the required empowerment to see through these situations by the grace of the Lord. That's the Tenu Kampa verse. 1 second. Then, yeah, this point we mentioned that when we have happy situations in our life, when we have happiness, that is exactly consuming the punya karma phala. And when we have difficult situations, that time if we remain patient, that also consumes the papa. So in a way, it is good because our sinful reactions are being cleared up, we are being purified. So if we remain patient through this, and ultimately if we consume both these good and bad reactions that are accrued based on our past deeds, then we are becoming eligible to take up Krishna consciousness full time and ultimately go back to Godhead. And this is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna mentions that those who have cleared those, especially the sinful reactions in their life, then they become eligible for Bhajante Mam Drudavrataha, to perform devotional service in a determined way. These personalities become eligible and they become free of the dualities of this material world. So if we want to attain this platform, we definitely need to clear up our both pious and the sinful reactions, especially the sinful reactions. So 1 second, we proceed. Anyone has any other pressing points to share, Prabhuji's, Mataji's, on this? Maybe one or two devotees. If not, we proceed. Let me see if there are any other devotees who have not spoken and want to speak. Share anything on this. If not, we proceed. So let me go back to the Bhagavatam verse. Text 23. So basically Parikshit Maharaj has understood the philosophical maturity and the stature of the bull. And next, who wants to recite the verse? Anyone? Prabhuji's, Mataji's? Usha Kamat Mataji, would you like to recite?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Verse 23. Athava deva mayaya.
Athava deva mayaya.
Nunam gatir agochara.
Nuna gatir agochara.
Chetaso vachaschapi.
Chetaso vachaschapi.
Bhutanam iti nishchayaha.
Bhutanam iti nishchayaha.
Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada ki Jai. Thus it is concluded that the Lord's energies are inconceivable. No one can estimate them by mental speculation or by word jugglery.
Yes. So you can read only the highlighted portion, Mataji. Purport.
Yes, Prabhuji. Purport. A question may be raised as to why a devotee should refrain from identifying an actor, although he knows definitely that the Lord is the ultimate doer of everything. Knowing the ultimate doer, one should not pose himself as ignorant of the actual performer. To answer this doubt, the reply is that the Lord is also not directly responsible for everything is done by his deputed Maya Shakti or material energy.
Oops. Yes.
The material energy is always provoking doubts about the supreme authority of the Lord.
Thank you. Thank you much.
Hare
So
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. In the previous purport, we saw that how Bhagavatam explains that all these things, the happiness, the benefits, as well as the distresses that are coming in our life, they are all coming with the sanction of the Lord for a very specific purpose. Why it is coming as with a specific purpose? Because Krishna cares for us, because it is Lord's grace upon us that He wants us to be purified and go back home, back to Godhead quickly. So if we know for sure that Krishna is the ultimate reason why the distresses and the benefits are coming, then why not identify Krishna explicitly? Why don't devotees mention that Krishna is the cause of my distress? So here Bhagavatam is saying that that is also due to the illusory energy of the Lord, because Krishna himself, although he is the sanctioner, he doesn't get into the nitty-gritties of what needs to be arranged for each person as such, but that task is left to his in material energy, Maya Shakti. And thus she is arranging those reactions. So it is like government sanctions a particular prisoner who has done a wrong deed to be punished with the imprisonment, or sometimes the president, he disagrees with or rejects the mercy plea that is filed by a particular prisoner on a capital punishment. But that doesn't mean that if that prisoner is hanged the next day, then government is responsible. Why? Because government has simply sanctioned, but it has not taken a personal interest whether that person should be saved or punished. Government's agencies and the legal system is making sure that what punishment should be meted out to that particular culprit. So a devotee cannot put blame on Krishna as well, not only on other person, but we cannot even identify Krishna as the root cause, because he is simply sanctioning it. He is not himself allocating that punishment. But the Maya Shakti is such that it always provokes us that some person, some entity, we want to put that blame on for whatever is wrong happening to us. And this is Rajo Uvacha, that means Parikshit Maharaj is speaking to the bull. So some of this is an important verse, and we will be referring to these lines in this verse for few verses. So let's recite this. Prema Priya Jayashri Mataji, want to recite? Hare Krishna. All right. I think some issue with Mataji's mic. Any other devotee would like to recite through?
Prabhu,
Hare
may I?
Krishna. Sanjukta Mataji. Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Tapah shauchang daya satyam
Tapah
Shaucham
Shaucham
daya
Daya
satyam
Satyam
iti pada krute krutaha
Iti Pada
krute
Krute Krutaha
adharmang saustrayo bhagna
Adharmam
trayo
Strayo Bhagna
smaya sanga madaistavah.
Smaya
maya sangha mataistava.
Samadhaistava. Translation.
One second, please. In the age of Satya, truthfulness, your 4 legs were established by the 4 principles of austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. But it appears that 3 of your legs are broken due to the rampant religion in the form of pride, lust for women, and intoxication.
Thank you. Thank you. So here, Parikshit Maharaj is saying to the bull, Tapa Shaucham Daya Satyam, that these are the 4 pillars of religion. Tapa means the austerity, Shaucham means cleanliness, Daya means mercy or compassion, and Satyam means truthfulness. And these 4 pillars of religion, they are counteracted by these anarthas or misdeeds which are mentioned in the last line. So first one is smaya. Smaya means pride. So pride, it counteracts basically the austerities. Sangha, although Sangha is translated here as the illicit connections, relationships with women, but in general, it applies to both men and women. Illicit connections with the opposite gender. So this Sangha, it destroys cleanliness, Shaucham. Madais. Madais means madness, intoxication. So that intoxication, it destroys daya, mercy or compassion. And finally, it will come in the subsequent verses, falsity, or Srila Prabhupada uses the word false propaganda or lying, that destroys satyam. This falsity, it destroys the truthfulness. So all these 4 legs of the religion, namely austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness, they, oh, sorry. They are counteracted by this pride, illicit connections with the opposite gender, intoxication, and falsity. So, since the purport is long, we won't go through all the purports completely. Let me see the highlighted part. Yes. Srila Prabhupada, he mentions that how in the earlier ages, especially in the Satyuga, which was the age of complete religiosity, where all these 4 legs of the religion, austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness, tapa, shaucham, daya, satyam, all these 4 legs of religion were completely stable and available. Practically, each and every person was a qualified Brahmana and even in fact a Paramahamsa. They were all exalted personalities. And thus it was quite natural, quite easy for them to counteract the influence of Maya. Srila Prabhupada mentions such strong men of character, they were competent enough to get away from the clutches of Maya. But gradually, how does Maya infiltrate as the age progresses from Satya Yuga to Treta Yuga and Treta Yuga to Dwapar, then to Kali Yuga? That all these four pillars of religion, they are destroyed one by one: austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. And how they are destroyed? Because of indulgence in such acts which are mentioned: the Smaya, Sangha, and Madai, and then fourth is the falsity. So as these four things are engaged into one by one, then the religious principles, the pillars of the religion, they get broken, and then degradation starts. And Srila Prabhupada is specifically mentioning that modern administration, modern states, they do try to counteract these evils by bringing in statutory acts or by police vigilance, but that cannot counteract the contamination. Why? Because the contamination is not externally, it is more so internally. And to remove that internal contamination or counteract that contamination, what is recommended in Srimad Bhagavatam is the systematic education for people in general about the principles of austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. Only when these four principles of religion are taught in a very systematic manner, and how they should be taught in a systematic manner is also explained in the subsequent verses. We'll see more there details. So only by this uh, uh, preaching of the Brahmanical culture for this. But why Brahmanical culture? Not based on the birth, but based on one's qualities and activities. These four principles of religion should be taught systematically. Then gradually, these irreligious activities or the lost legs of the religion, dharma, they can be re-established, not externally. And specifically, Srila Prabhupada is giving some practical means. One of the driving points Srila Prabhupada is mentioning for the systematic education of the people in these dharmic principles of austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. That will be possible only when the well-to-do persons, when the wealthy persons, not wealthy, not just wealthy, but those who are rich and well-to-do, when these people agree to devote at least 50% of their earnings for this systematic propaganda for preaching the principles of religion through Srimad Bhagavatam, then certainly the systematic education can be propagated. Srila Prabhupada is mentioning this as the way to counteract Kali. In this part, Usha Mataji, you can read the pink one. We must.
Yes, Prabhuji. We must always remember that false pride or too high an estimation of one's own values of life, undue attachment to women or association with them, and intoxication will divert human civilization from the path of peace, however much the people clamor for peace in the world. The preaching of the Bhagavatam principles will automatically render all men austere, clean both inside and outside, merciful to the suffering, and truthful in daily behavior. That is the way of correcting the flaws of human society, which are very prominently exhibited at the present moment. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you, Manish. So, Srila Prabhupada is explaining that while the leaders of the society, the modern states, they do want to get rid of evil, but on one hand, they allow such enterprises like, say, for example, beer bars and permit rooms, the prostitution houses or the animal slaughter houses. Then that is like indirectly endorsing all these irreligious activities, including false pride, intoxication, indiscriminate association with the opposite gender, and falsity. And thus, the evils can never be worked out when the government is directly or indirectly endorsing such enterprises. And this can never result in peace. On the other hand, if systematic education of the religious principles, including austerity, truthfulness, mercy, and cleanliness, if that is propagated, especially the teachings of Bhagavatam, that can fight against evil. And that is very much practical. That is Srila Prabhupada's conviction. continue with the translation, Mataji. You are now.
You are now standing on one leg only, which is your truthfulness, and you are somehow or the other hobbling along. But quarrel personified, that is Kali, flourishing by deceit, is also trying to destroy that leg.
Yes.
Puppet?
Yeah, so one second.
Yes, yes.
So Srila Prabhupada here is mentioning how do we exactly follow these principles of religiosity, including austerity, cleanliness, mercy, truthfulness, by giving a very practical points. So let's go through these points one by one. Austerity.
Austerity means to accept voluntarily things which may not be very comfortable for the body, but are conducive for spiritual realization. For example, fasting. Fasting twice or four times a month is a sort of austerity which may be voluntarily accepted for spiritual realization only and not for any other purpose, political or otherwise. Fasting, which are meant not for self realization but for some other purposes, are condemned in the Bhagavad Gita 17.5 to 6. Similarly,
so we'll take a pause here.
Yes.
For the austerity, Bhagavatam mentions the simple method for austerity, and which is not just helpful for our spiritual realization, but it has been proved recently, only 2 to 3 years back. If you Google, you can find out two Japanese scientists who came out with a thesis, a paper, which was how chances of cancer are almost reduced by 80 plus percent, 80 to 85% in persons who engage in fast minimum once a fortnight, around once a fortnight. So that paper had come out, and these people, they were rewarded, if I'm not wrong, with a Nobel. So point is, the fasting, intermittent fasting, especially around once a fortnight, is not just helpful for our spiritual realization, but it also helps the body in killing all the disease related cells like for cancer, etc. Srila Prabhupada gives example in his talks on fasting. He mentioned just like a guest, if you have a guest, of course, we don't follow it as it is for guests, but Prabhupada is giving an example for teaching purpose. If we have a guest in our house, how do we drive him or her out? Srila Prabhupada says, if you don't feed him, automatically that person will go away. Similarly, the viruses and the microbes related to various diseases, if we do fasting, then automatically those cancerous cells automatically they get killed. But one particular thing the fasting is definitely condemned for, and that is for non-spiritual advancement purposes, like for political purposes, etc. And we don't want to take any specific names, but nowadays it has become a fashion after one of our great freedom fighters who used this fasting as a means of protest against the state agenda, but that is not recommended in scriptures. Specifically, in fact, it is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita purports that if we are taking such fastings for few days or for extended period for some achieving some political purpose, it is like torturing the part and parcel of Lord Krishna, the soul, because to go without food and water for that long, it is like torturing the personal expanded the part and parcel form of Lord Krishna, the soul. So that is not recommended for sure. So if we look at it from the positive point of view, the body will be healed, the soul will also get benefited if we do a regulative fasting, say for Ekadashi, but not for political or any other purpose. And one more last point on fasting, Prabhupada also mentions, not Prabhupada, even the social uh, workers and the organizations who work in the field of poverty and malnutrition, they mention that if well-to-do people renounce food once in a fortnight, then a significantly large number of the population who don't have food, who don't have enough food grains, vegetables available to them, they can be nourished as well. That much amount of food will be saved if healthy population commits to fasting once a fortnight. So that is also a benediction of fasting. Not only we are healing our body, not only are we advancing in spiritual life, but we are also helping the those who are not privileged to have proper food by saving those grains. Ultimately, it will benefit the malnourished also. Any questions? Anybody has any thoughts to share, Prabhuji's, Mataji's, on this austerity of fasting? And we need to do it in a proper attitude. Like I can tell you very honestly, when I came to Krishna consciousness, initially one of the most difficult or very worrying things for me was when the Ekadashi was approaching, or even more than Ekadashi, when say Janmashtami is approaching or Nirjala Ekadashi is approaching. How do we manage the fasting? But it is more to do, if we are convinced with how it is going to help me spiritually, then mind will not take us necessarily to the food related points, but we will be busy with our other services. So there is a gulf of difference between fasting and starving. Going without food is not necessarily fasting. Fasting means in spirit, in Sanskrit, the word that is used for fasting is upavas. And upavas means we are going closer to Krishna for achieving a higher purpose. So we are minimizing the bodily necessities in order to go closer to Krishna. And if we undertake a fast in the spirit, then it will be easier rather than simply seeing it as abstaining from food. That would simply turn into starving, and which is very, very painful. So fasting is different than starving. Sadhatushta Prabhuji, you wanted to share something?
Yeah, just a point to share, Prabhuji. Now, the philosophy is to fast and rise above the bodily demands. But today's trend, if you see, Ekadashi, we end up eating more than what the normal days we eat. Yes, we fast from non-grains, but we have so much big feast. So that to be avoided as much as possible. In the right mood, we have to do it.
Yes, true. And there are various grades of fasting, like as Sadhatushta Prabhu mentioned. Like maybe for somebody who has just come, we may give them a sumptuous, a very opulent Ekadashi Prasadam. Like if you go to Govinda's in Vrindavan, you would even get Ekadashi pizza. But then what is the meaning of Ekadashi if we are going for a pizza on Ekadashi fast? So for a new person, to keep them encouraged and happy, we may offer them opulent Ekadashi Prasadam. But for people, for devotees in general, if the body is allowing, we should fast simply. Best if we can take fruits or sweet potatoes, very sattvic diet. If body is allowing, then we can even go on water. And if body is allowing, one can even fast Nirjala. So based on your bodily constitution, you can decide. But as Prabhuji rightly mentioned, we should not use Ekadashi to simply satisfy our palate by going for opulent food. So next is cleanliness. For cleanliness, Srila Prabhupada keeps it very simple. One is cleanliness of the body and mind. And specifically for cleanliness of the mind, Srila Prabhupada mentions chanting and glorification of the Supreme Lord. So, Usha Mataji, please read through this similarly.
Yes, Prabhuji. Similarly, cleanliness is necessary both for the mind and for the body. Simply bodily cleanliness may help to some extent, but cleanliness of the mind is necessary, and it is effected by glorifying the Supreme Lord. No one can cleanse the accumulated mental dust without glorifying the Supreme Lord.
Yes. And here, when you are reading the purports, Prabhuji's, Mataji's, you will find that Srila Prabhupada, he is giving the translations or clue to specific verses either in Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam. So I request whenever you are reading the complete purports, because we are not covering them here, do make it a point to note down the verses Srila Prabhupada is referring to without even giving references to those verse numbers. For example, this particular portion of the purport, Srila Prabhupada is saying, a godless civilization cannot cleanse the mind because it has no idea of God. And for this simple reason, people under such a civilization cannot have a good qualifications, however they may be materially equipped. Now, those of you who join the morning short Srimad Bhagavatam classes, recently we discussed a verse from the prayers of residents of Jambudvipa. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana sarvair gunais tatra samasate sura. Harava abhaktasya kuto mahaguna manorathena sati dhavato bahi. That for a abhakta, for a non-devotee, even if he may be materially very well qualified, well presented, but kutu mahadguna, he cannot have a good quality because he is completely being driven in different directions on the chariot of the mind, being driven by different senses in various directions. Such a person cannot have any good qualities. So to note down the specific verses Srila Prabhupada is referring to as part of his natural commentary. So please continue, Mataji. By pride.
By pride, either artificial or real, the resultant action of austerity is spoiled. By too much affection for female association, cleanliness is spoiled. By too much addiction to intoxication, mercy is spoiled. And by too much lying propaganda, truthfulness is spoiled.
Yes, thank you.
Thank
So
you.
here, Srila Prabhupada is saying all these 4 types of anarthas, how they spoil the 4 pillars of religion. So tapa, shaucham, daya, satyam, they are spoiled by smaya, the pride, sangha, indiscriminate association with the opposite gender spoils shaucham, the intoxication, it spoils mercy, and false propaganda, falsity, it spoils the satyam, truthfulness. Right. We'll request some other devotee. Anybody else would like to read through Prabhuji's Mataji? We'll read through few translations before we come to reciting the verses. Anyone would like to read through? Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Prema Priya Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Yes. You want to recite or you want to read through?
Both I would like to do, Prabhuji.
Okay, you can read through then. Fine.
Which one, Prabhuji?
The burden of earth.
A translation, Maheshwar Prabhupada Vijay. The burden of the earth was certainly diminished by the personality of Godhead and by others as well. When he was present as an incarnation, all good was performed because of his auspicious footprints. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Now she.
Now she, the chaste one, being unfortunately forsaken by the personality of Godhead, laments her future with tears in her eyes. For now she is being ruled and enjoyed by lower class men who pose as rulers.
Yes. Who is Parikshit Maharaj now talking about? He's referring to
the cow.
The cow, who is the representative of Mother Earth. Yes. So, yeah, you can read through the highlighted part, then we discuss, Mataji.
Untrained lower class men are men without ambition to protect the sufferers, cannot be placed on the seat of an administrator. Unfortunately, in the age of Kali, the lower class men without training occupy the post of a ruler by strength of popular votes. And instead of protecting the sufferers, such men create a situation quite intolerable for everyone. And in the absence of a suitable king to curb irreligious tendencies, educating the people systematically in the teaching of Srimad Bhagavatam will clear up the hazy atmosphere of corruption, bribery, blackmail, etc. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So here, Bhagavatam is saying that one of the very important prerequisite for counteracting the evils of Kali is to have a very stable, strong administrator like King Parikshit. But when the people who are in those administrative posts as the heads of the state, they are brought into that position because of the popular votes. That means majority in a democracy, then such people need not be having those qualifications. And rather than counteracting the evils of Kali, they create an atmosphere which is completely opposite, which is intolerable for every common man. And Srila Prabhupada, if you recollect, all of you, Prabhuji's Mataji, we had discussed this few sessions back, that in Srila Prabhupada's quarters in Vrindavan, which is just behind Srila Prabhupada's Samadhi, where it stands today. Srila Prabhupada's bed on which he spent his last few days is there, and some of Srila Prabhupada's personal paraphernalia that he used is also there. And amongst those things, items, personal items of Prabhupada is a small handwritten diary, which is available in the glass case. And in one of the pages of that diary, which is visible from outside, around 12 to 13 points are handwritten by Prabhupada. And in those 13 points, one of the points was related to this. Probably he jotted it down when he was writing the purports to Bhagavatam, that the leaders of the society, especially he mentioned in that diary, the members of parliament in India, they must be at least second initiated. Only then they should be allowed to be MPs in the parliament. They should be properly trained. And here Prabhupada is saying, unless those leaders of the society are that much trained, bare minimum we can do at our level. Now it is not easy with the current degradation to have such qualified MPs. At least what we can do is to systematically propagate the teachings of Bhagavatam, that what are the pillars of religion, how those pillars are breached, what are the activities that systematically spoil those pillars, and most importantly, what are the rules and regulations which we can bring in our own life to re-establish those pillars. That is very important. Whatever damage has happened is one thing, but how we can correct it is very important. And Bhagavatam throws lights on those do's also. And last paragraph, Srila Prabhupada had stressed on systematic teachings of the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam, propagation of those teachings. Here also he is stressing that. So we continue. Prema Priya Mataji, continue for a few more verses. Translation.
Yes, translation. Maharaja Parikshit, who could fight 1,000 enemies single-handedly, thus pacified the personality of religion and the earth. Then he took up his sharp sword to kill the personality of Kali, who is the cause of all irreligion.
Yes. So now that Maharaj Parikshit has had that conversation with the bull, heard the bull out, that this Kali Purusha cannot be himself considered as the cause of the bulls and the cows suffering, but it is the sanction of the Lord with which these sufferings are being meted out to us. So Parikshit Maharaj is not just standing still, he is immediately ready to kill the personality of Kali. And this killing of the personality of Kali has not been asked by the bull, but it is based on the discretion of Maharaj Parikshit himself. What he feels is required for the good of his state, for the good of people in general. So purport you can go through at your leisure. You can read through the highlighted part, Mataji.
The administrators should not simply pass resolutions for anti-corruptional steps, but they must be ready with sharp swords to kill the persons creating corruptions from the angle of vision of the recognized Shastras. The administrators cannot prevent corrupt activities by allowing wine shops. They must at once close all shops of intoxicating drugs and wine and force punishment even by death for those who indulge in habits of intoxication of all description. That is the way of stopping the activities of Kali, as exhibited herein by Maharaja Parikshit, the Maharatha.
Thank you. Maharatha means that king who was able to find even 1,000 warriors single-handedly. Maharaj Parikshit, who could fight 1,000 enemies single-handedly. That's why he's called Maharatha. And in the modern day, we can see that states are completely dependent on these tax revenues coming from the sale of liquor and tobacco. These contribute the maximum taxes that the government gets. So it is completely impossible for the government to come up with these policies unless they manage their ledger properly, they manage their budget properly, from where the revenues should come and where the money should be invested or spent. Because with the current type of welfare schemes, like many of those are freebies and all, those schemes cannot be sustained unless the government is extracting a very heavy taxation. And that heavy taxation, from where it can come? From all these evils of Kali by selling the liquor, tobacco products, alcohol, etc. Otherwise, it is not possible to get those revenues. So that means what it means is the whole cycle has got topsy-turvy because the government is spending indiscriminately just to appease common people in general. Ultimately, they need to extract that money from the common mass of people, and to extract that money, willingly or unwillingly, they need to propagate the evils of Kali in the form of intoxication and other breach of regulative principles. So Prabhuji's, Mataji's, we still have quite a few verses, almost 15 verses to cover. And I think it will be a lot of rush if we target to clear those today, because some of these purports are very important and I don't want to rush through. So we will conclude slightly early today and cover this chapter next time. Okay. Can I request devotees, are there any questions, comments on this? But so 2 points we saw today. One particular point, very important, we saw is how a devotee should perceive the wrong things, the reversals, the distresses coming in our life, that they are coming by the sanction of the Lord because of my own misdeeds in the past. And whoever person is perpetrating those wrongs is simply an instrument. So no point being envious or being angry, upset towards that person. And as Sadhatushta Prabhu rightly mentioned, that at the same time, we should not go to other extreme where we simply be quiet towards those wrong deeds, especially if those wrong deeds involve exploitation, and should definitely report those to the authorities so that mitigative steps can be taken, but we don't target the perpetrators as a wrongdoer for ourselves. This is one point. Second point we saw was the 4 principles of religion that Maharaj Parikshit acknowledges to the bull, saying TSDS, tapas, shaucham, daya, satyam, austerity, cleanliness, mercifulness, and mercy and truthfulness. These are the 4 pillars of religion, and they are being counteracted by, anyone can say, austerity is counteracted by what? What destroys the austerity that we saw? You can refer to Bhagavatam. Smaya. Come again, Reena Mataji, you were saying something?
Pride,
Pride, correct. Yeah, smaya or pride, it destroys austerity. Then TS, shaucham, what destroys shaucham? Cleanliness.
abstaining from illicit sex.
Correct. So illicit relationships with the opposite gender, it destroys cleanliness. Tapas, shaucham, daya, what destroys daya?
Intoxication.
Intoxication. And shaucham, cleanliness. Sorry, so not shaucham, truthfulness. Satyam. Truthfulness,
Lying
what destroys
propaganda.
truthfulness?
Lying
Oh, yeah,
propaganda.
falsity, lying propaganda or falsity. So it destroys truthfulness. And going forward in the upcoming verses, we will see specific.
One point. Can I?
Yeah, Murli Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Yes. You said what destroys daya. Then the
Daya.
one is the illicit relations part. I think it's more than the illicit relation part. Does it not include all the illicit activities one gets involved with? It's just not about the relation. Because
Your voice is not coming very clear, Murli Prabhu. But what we discussed is the intoxication is what destroys daya, and the illicit relationship that destroys cleanliness. Okay.
Okay,
Hare Krishna. And one more thing, that when we say destroys a particular principle, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have impact on other pillars of religion. It does, but we are just recollecting the Bhagavatam verses that we refer to. So what I was saying, yeah. In the subsequent verses, Srila Prabhupada also gives the specific means how, as a householders, we also have our responsibility to contribute to the systematic propagation of teachings of Bhagavatam. And I was feeling that how important it is that ISKCON Mangalore, Namanishta Prabhuji and the congregation in general are conducting so many courses. So this is also one of the way to systematically propagate the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, and using whatever is there within our means, including the Lakshmi that we have, the intelligence that we have, the power to speak that we have, or other influences, services that we can render. We should definitely contribute to the systematic preaching of Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. That is bare minimum we can do. That's what Bhagavatam is saying. Anand Vilas Prabhu, please unmute Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandot Pranam.
Dandot Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, as we were discussing, you told one point that in age of Kali, we can see the prostitution and liquor shops are being promoted or like that.
Yes,
but
Prabhuji.
in previous chapters we saw that when Lord Krishna was welcome to Dwarka, there were some prostitutes. So how to connect those points?
Reconcile. Yes,
Yes.
how very good and practical questions. In fact, I myself remembered one point when we were talking about this, that it is available on Wikipedia. Prostitution is the oldest profession on the earth. So how it is possible to completely get rid of it? To be honest, based on the descriptions in Bhagavatam, it seems that there were people who were indulging in these activities even in the earlier ages, but there was one difference, two differences. First difference was that all these activities, that means which are in breach of the regulatory principles, they were censored, they were regulated by the state, they were not allowed in a free flow manner. Like Prabhupada gives example, say for example, meat eating. Government did not have government sponsored slaughterhouses which would provide the meat in a very nicely packed manner for people to go and buy from the supermarkets. So this is one difference, that these activities were regulated, censored. And second was what we just mentioned, there was no state organized support for breaching these principles. Like one example Prabhupada gives, like giving licenses for permit rooms and extract taxes in return. So that is like as good as who is going to go to permit room. Definitely, if government gives more licenses, more youths will definitely tend to go there and indulge in breaching the regulatory principles. So the regulation is missing in the current time. And second is, knowingly or unknowingly, maybe for whatever purpose, ABC, to increase revenue or what, state is supporting the breach of the regulatory principles. So that is the problem, Prabhuji. Okay, so definitely earlier there were cases of breaching these principles, but it was not state organized, and now it is state organized. So at least that we can try to counteract.
Okay, Prabhuji. So we can say that they were in regulated manner earlier and they were not supported.
Correct.
And
They were
people,
not.
if someone is doing that, he was having this in his mind that he is doing something wrong. So he used to do it in very means very in very means very hateful manner, or means not happily.
Private,
Yeah,
correct.
privately.
And privately, and more than support, the word is these were not facilitated by the government, by the state earlier. So, yeah.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
Shama Gopika Mataji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Anything
Hare
else?
Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes,
Hare
yes,
Krishna
ma'am.
Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Just one question, Prabhuji.
Then,
Earlier I heard that the mercy is destroyed by, meat eating, means the compassion,
yes.
right? So,
Yes,
yeah, so now we see that it is due to the intoxication.
Yeah. So again, these are not, like as I mentioned, one type of evil doesn't necessarily attack only one pillar. So it does more than one, but we are simply referring to this particular latest purport. Where was it? Here.
Yeah.
This one, where is that? Mm, By pride, either artificial or real, the resultant action of austerity is spoiled. Too much affection for female association, cleanliness is spoiled. Too much addiction to intoxication, mercy is spoiled. Yeah, so as you rightly mentioned, even meat eating is also goes against the principle of mercy, and these evils, they counteract more than one pillars for sure. But this is what is mentioned in the current set of verses. Yeah.
Okay.
And my
Okay.
understanding why Prabhupada has mentioned in this order, you look at the verse. If you look at the verse and the sequence, where is that verse? TSDS. Yeah, here. So tapas first is mentioned Maya. Shaucham Sangha is mentioned. Daya Madais is mentioned. So my understanding by studying these verses is probably this is the sequence Prabhupada has followed while giving the purport. Why he has related the two.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Hare
Yeah,
Krishna.
got it, Prabhu. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Any other devotees want to share anything, Prabhuji's, Mataji's? Maybe now we take that question on attendance sheet. Rohini Mataji, just see if that is working. Venkata Narasimha Prabhu was saying it was not working. Just check now.
Yes, Prabhuji, it is working and people have added
Filled
them.
in.
It is.
Okay.
It is working.
Venkata Narasimha Prabhu, it's all good for you. You are able to fill in also.
Yes, sir, it is all right.
Okay, fine. So we will conclude our discussion slightly early today. My apologies for that because I need to rush for a 3 o'clock meeting. Hare Krishna. So we'll continue from text. Hare Krishna. Yes, Murli Prabhu.
One question, Prabhuji. Maybe
Yes,
can
Prabhuji.
I ask?
Yeah.
It's not for today, but maybe we can pick it up later.
Mm-hmm.
So in Satyuga you have all four. Okay.
Yes.
In Treta Yuga, which one is lost? Is Satyam lost? Daya lost?
Good.
Satyam is there.
Good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, Satyam is there in the current age. Yeah. So I'll check and I'll come back.
Yeah. And Dwapara Yuga, what two are lost? Okay. This was my doubt.
Sure. I will check that. And just related to the point what Murli Prabhu just mentioned, all of us would be very happy to know. This question was asked in Marathi Bhagavatam session yesterday. Yesterday morning. That we are saying that in Kali Yuga only one is remaining, and that devotee was asking that Krishna has just appeared around 5,000 years back, very recently, end of the Dwapar Yuga. So how come degradation be so much just within 5,000 years of time after the departure of Lord Krishna? Does it mean that you are saying that one by one pillars of religion are getting destroyed as the age is progressing? Does it mean that there was anarchy or adharma even in earlier ages, say in Treta Yuga with one pillar destroyed, in Dwapar Yuga with two pillars destroyed, and beginning of Kali Yuga when three pillars are already destroyed? So I told Prabhuji that although there were great demons like say Hiranyakashipu in Satya Yuga, Bhagavatam itself confirms, it will come in the subsequent verses, that all the people living at that particular time, nearly each person was a qualified Brahmana or even not Parivrajaka, Paramahamsa, a completely purified personality. We saw in the purport. That means they were able to counteract Maya very effectively. And that also means, although they were demons on the top, at the ground level, people were still very much following the path of religiosity. It was not as degraded as we see now. So this degradation is not just because of after Krishna disappearing from the earth's surface, but it is also the degradation as part of the age itself, as part of the Kali Yuga. So earlier, it was definitely a much higher stature for humanity as far as religious principles are concerned. So I will come back to you, Murli Prabhu, for your specific question. Which specific pillar was breached in which specific yuga?
Yeah,
okay.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. So we'll stop here. Vamcha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Vaishnav Thakur ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat
Hare
Pranam.
Krishna.